Malcolm, good morning, mate.
Good morning, Marcus. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm very well. Listen, I just wanted to ask you first off the bat a question without notice because I know you're very good on your feet. New research has found Australia's coal-fired power stations are routinely breaching their licence conditions, putting our community's health and the environment at risk. The newly released Coal Impacts Index reveals there have been more than 150 publicly reported environmental breaches since 2015. However, the spokesperson for Australia Beyond Coal, David Ritter, says only a fraction of these 16 have resulted in penalties or enforceable undertakings. Now, if coal's to be a part of our reliable energy future, we need to clean up our backyard, I think.
Well, if that's true, then certainly we need to. No one should be exempt from those regulations, Marcus. The environment is very important. It's also important to understand that solar power destroys the environment as well because they're leaching cadmium and selenium and lead into the soil and into the water. In fact, it's monstrous what's going on north of Brisbane. A proposed Chinese development of a solar panel farm. They're not farms; they're industrial complexes directly affecting Brisbane's water supply for 2 million people. So, I mean, we've got to protect the environment. That's the number one thing. The environment can't exist without civilization being productive, and civilization can't be productive without the environment being protected. So the future of our civilization, the future of our environment are interdependent and rely on each other.
All right. Anthony Albanese, the federal opposition leader yesterday, talked policy. He'll be on the program a little later this morning, but by the way, he's promising workers a better deal with a suite of reforms to improve job security and provide minimum pay and entitlements to those in insecure work. What's your take on this?
Well, I think he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. For a start, his policies on energy, his policies on lack of taxation reform are cruelling job security. Secondly, his policies on energy, as I just mentioned, don't take into account the fact that Australian workers need to be productive. And we can't be productive when we've got energy costs that are now amongst the highest in the world due to Labor policies under Kevin Rudd and Julia Gillard, and due to Liberal national policies under John Howard and every Prime Minister since. So what we need to do is look at the big picture. But also it's very hypocritical and I believe dishonest of Anthony Albanese to talk what he's talking about casuals, because Joel Fitzgibbon had plenty of opportunity to address the casual issues in the Hunter Valley. Instead, what he did was he tried to misrepresent me going after it. And now what we're seeing is I was absolutely right with Simon Turner and others in the Hunter Valley, loss of workers' compensation, loss of their leave entitlements, loss of their long service leave, accruals being accurate, loss of their accident pay, being suppressed when they had an accident or injury, and being told to cover it up. Anthony Albanese has got to come clean on this. Joel Fitzgibbon had 6 years to fix this. So did the Liberal Party. They've done nothing until their big corporate mates get into trouble, and now they're wanting to take on the little guy again.
Well, all right, let's move on to the World Health Organization and that dopey, ridiculous so-called investigation into COVID.
Yeah, can you believe it? That they think it might have come from our beef. I mean, this is absolutely monstrous. We know that the Chinese Communist Party and the UN have through the World Health Organization have colluded closely to suppress the news of COVID virus in China early last year. We know that, and that enabled the virus to get a march on around the world. And I mean, the Chinese came out, and the World Health Organization echoed them, saying there is no human-to-human virus transmission, none at all. And then they suppressed news of that. They suppressed their own doctors of it, and the World Health Organization's chief has been beholden to China. So this is not an investigation. It's a cover-up. It's a complete cover-up. And can we really have confidence that this is a transparent and thorough investigation? No, we can't. And what we need to do is get the hell out of the World Health Organization and get out of the UN. That's why I called for an Oz exit from the UN back in 2016, and I keep calling for that. The UN is a corrupt, dishonest, incompetent, lazy organisation that is hurting our country.
Well, they say the likely scenario is that the virus passed from original animal host to intermediary animals, including frozen and chilled animal products, including Australian beef, to humans.
Yeah, I mean, it's ludicrous. They wouldn't allow an investigation for 12 months, basically. They covered everything up. They weren't allowed to go to the lab. I mean, this is not an investigation. It's a stitch-up.
All right. What about the Nationals? Are they backing away from manufacturing policy? They've collapsed on coal. They're backing net zero 2050. It means they're, in your opinion, opposing jobs.
Yes, we talked last week about the fact that the Nationals came up with a lovely glossy booklet, and the core of that booklet, on their managing policy, but on their manufacturing policy,
yeah.
But the core of that booklet was a solid page on their support for coal. Then we put a motion into the Senate 1 week ago, and we said, we need to build a coal-fired power station in Hunter Valley, which is exactly what the Nationals were proposing. And in the face of the motion in the Senate, the Nationals ran away and voted with the Liberals against a coal-fired power station in the Hunter, after they said just a week before that they were supporting it. So they abandoned coal last week. Now we see their manufacturing policy relies upon cheap energy, but with the net zero 2050, it means that the Liberal Party will be opposing jobs and opposing cheap energy and opposing manufacturing. And the Nationals have meekly rolled over again, because this policy for net zero, according to the IPA, will cost coal miners, farmers and steel and iron workers amongst the majority of the 654,000 jobs that will be lost by the adoption of net zero. We can't afford it. It's absolute rubbish.
All right. And let's move now to the north of the country, Western Australia in particular, the northwest. Yet another overreach, you say, by Mark McGowan, the WA Premier, in closing down for some 5 days.
Yes. Marcus, I was supposed to be calling you from WA up in the northwest, up near the Kimberleys today, but unfortunately we couldn't go there because Mark McGowan capriciously locked down parts of WA again and made it impossible for us to get there and come back in the time without some risk. So we need a better way of managing our community and business in the face of the virus being here. It's just ludicrous where we get one case and people get locked down. We get people jumping on a plane in Perth, coming to Brisbane. By the time they land in Brisbane, 5 hours later, they suddenly find out the WA has been locked down and they have to go into hotel quarantine for 2 weeks at their own expense. This is not right. And we've got people in New South Wales contacted me saying they'd love to spend a holiday in northern Queensland, beautiful up there, and they're not going to do it because they just don't know what Anastasia Palaszczuk is going to do. McGowan, Palaszczuk, the control freak in Victoria, they're using lockdowns capriciously, and even the UN's corrupt World Health Organization has admitted that lockdowns are a blunt instrument to be used when things are out of control to get control. So is the premiers of Western Australia, Queensland and Victoria simply admitting that they can't control their states properly with the virus in their states?
Always good to have you on for your views. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Marcus. Have a good day, mate.
Take care, Malcolm.